Well, good evening, folks. Welcome to our post-match reaction video with myself, Joshua Barry, and Jonny McFarlane after Rangers. I think edge is a fair description past Alashkert into the Europa League group stages, which of course is the end result that matters, Jonny. But that was a performance that I think the Rangers support would have let out a combined few at the end of, because it was far more uncomfortable than it needed to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, that's my front door going in the background in case you're wondering what that is.
Mine is too.
Yeah, listen, it was at the end of the day, it was far more difficult for Rangers than I think any of us thought. And ultimately, you know, as you say, the main thing is that Rangers have got through to the Europa League. But it wasn't a performance that I think too many people want to watch back in a hurry, was it? I mean, it was pretty slow, pretty staid stuff.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was 36 degrees. I heard on commentary, which is very hot, and it's hard to run a lot in that intensity. But Rangers were poor. Rangers were really poor. I mean, Alfredo and Morelos had three very clear chances. I think that the third chance in the second half was a little bit of a stretch to get on the end of a Patterson cross, but I think all across the pitch for Rangers it was just a yard off. I thought they lacked pace in behind in the first half. When Nathan Patterson managed to get high, that gave them a threat in behind. But I think aside from Patterson, there wasn't someone that was going to burst beyond Morelos, which I think Alashkert knew and made the defensive job a little bit easier. Born embarrassed, which I thought continued his kind of rusty form that he started the season with. There was just a few nervy moments. I mean, even Connor Goldson leaving that cross on maybe 55 minutes was mental. That Phil Hollander had to clear away. And I think it's hard to judge much off of a European tie in that heat and in the circumstances. But equally, I think supporters will justifiably feel frustrated that the start of a European campaign that had so much positivity is ended with edging past a team that aren't exactly pulling up trees in this season's Armenian Premier League. Jonny, who for you, didn't have a great night in the circumstances?
Well, I thought Alfredo Morelos was really poor, Joshua. We all really think Alfredo has been a terrific player for Rangers. I don't think there's anyone that would debate that. However, for me, if he's going to become a truly top-level striker, he does need to work on his finishing. And I think today we saw that he's just not a natural, instinctive striker who is decisive in front of goal. He can be, but often enough for me. And I think you saw that today. There was three glaring chances that he had that on another day you would expect Alfredo Morelos to put in the back of the net. Simple as that. He just wasn't up to it today. And there was just there was a lack of intensity about his performance. There was a lack of he just looked like a guy that wasn't 100% sure of himself, which is unusual and really disappointing to see, because if one of those chances had gone in, then Rangers are on easy street in this tie. It's as simple as that. But because they were profligate in front of goal, and it wasn't just Morelos, to be fair, there was other chances missed as well. It did mean that it was a more difficult occasion than what you would expect. It reminded me of a game. It was a Champions League qualifier back in 1995 against Anorthosis Famagusta of Cyprus. Rangers had sort of edged through 1-0 in the first game at Ibrox, and then in really sticky heat over there in Cyprus, they edged the game with a 0-0 draw that sent them through to the Champions League. It was very similar in terms of the way that the game panned out. Ultimately, the result is still the same. Rangers in the Europa League, that's what everyone wanted. But listen, there comes a time, Joshua, where we're going to have to start saying Rangers have clicked. Because if they don't, if they continue to play like they have been playing, this is going to be a difficult season. So, Sunday is where we need to start seeing the old Rangers return. It's as simple as that. The Rangers from last season needs to get back, because this kind of performance that we've seen tonight, it's just not going to be good enough, I'm afraid, for Sunday. It needs to be a lot better. Now, I know that there's been issues around the club, and I know that obviously the preparation has not been ideal, but the players that were on the pitch, you would have hoped to have seen a more cohesive, a more fluent performance, I think.
Yeah, and I think it did feel like a game where an early goal would have made it much more comfortable, because I thought actually the first 20 minutes Rangers were okay. Morelos looks pretty lively, and we won the ball back a couple of times off of the Alashkert taking some incredible risks out playing out from the back. Even with 10 men, genuinely incredible. So complete fair play to them for that. And I thought Hadji was quite bright early on as well, kind of turning and receiving in some nice areas. There was just a lack of pace all over the pitch, and Nathan.
That's no surprise, though. We pinpointed that this morning. We talked about that with that lineup, and we all selected that lineup.
Yeah,
well, they needed to really get Patterson and Barisic high up the pitch. So
I thought they needed Patterson to be. They needed Arfield to almost sit a little bit deeper to allow Patterson to be almost a last man runner, as Tavernier quite often is. When he plays it right back for Rangers to play off the last man, almost as a conventional winger in that shape. But I thought, and on a fair few occasions, Arfield got really close to Morelos, didn't he? And that almost garnered some real success at the end of the first half, when he could have maybe had a penalty if he'd gone down. But yeah, there was a lack of pace. I thought Aribo, to be fair, was the brightest spark. He was the only 7 in the player ratings. The other positive, I guess, is that Robbie McCrory didn't have much to deal with, Jonny, but when there was a shot from Mbalo that had a lot of force behind it, and he dealt with that very well. He obviously came out and gathered the ball very well, which led to the red card, and he was brave for that. So I think in terms of positives, you look at Joe Aribo and Robbie McCrory, maybe Nathan Patterson. It's hard to find many others, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, I mean, you could see that Rangers were struggling when Stephen Davis, of all players, the metronomic presence that is Stephen Davis, who rarely ever gives the ball away, saunters through the whole season with a 90% pass accuracy rate. Twice in the game, which is really unusual, he gave away what you would say would be unusually dangerous balls.
Yeah.
And there's one in the first half where he tried, I think Neil McCann in commentary said, look, it was the right ball, but I thought it was pretty aggressive to play through like that at that time. It was a very ambitious through ball. But listen, Davis, I mean, who am I to criticise Stephen Davis? I mean, the guy, is superb, but if he's starting to misplace passes, that gives you an indication that maybe the team as a whole is not functioning properly. Mm-hmm. And I just think it wasn't a good performance overall, despite the amount of chances that were created. I think we've talked a lot about Rangers and control, and how control is such a big part of the philosophy under Gerrard. I just didn't really feel like Rangers had full control over the game. I mean, did you feel like that? I felt that Alashkert were always slightly dangerous.
Yeah, well, I think it's the type of thing that you've seen at the start of the season, where there's just little mistakes that that happened that wouldn't have happened last season. I was actually doing a bit of research this afternoon ahead of the Old Firm, looking at Rangers' aggression stats on StatsBomb, which basically categorises the number of defensive actions within 2 seconds of the team within 2 seconds of a passage of possession for the team. So as opposed to losing the ball passes per defensive action, it measures aggression instead of pressing. And Rangers are a little bit lower than their average last season. And I think what you see in a lot of the chances that Rangers are creating is just that little bit of a lack of aggression. So I'm thinking on this instance about the cross that Connor Goldson allowed across the box. That comes from Arfield not shutting down the original cross. There was a couple of times in that second half where that happened. So, and I think that's a little bit of a sharpness thing, but I think when you're on top, these are just the little mistakes that don't happen as much. But you need to work these yards to then get back to a comfortable situation. So I tend to agree with you that it didn't feel, even with Alashkert at 10 men, there was periods in that game where I think Rangers didn't control attacks enough, even in the last 5 minutes, when you had... There was maybe 3 occasions before Rangers went to the corner where they could have went to the corner, and they didn't. So that was a real frustration. But I would agree with your take on that. Even in the first half as well, I actually tweeted out Alashkert managed to do a lot of rotations when their fullback had the ball and Glenn Kamara was coming out to engage. And I thought that was really intelligent from Alashkert, but it was really easily done, and Rangers midfield were pulled apart too easily. So, listen, it's a little bit of a sticky spell the club are going through, I think, on the pitch. Given the circumstances of the COVID outbreak and everything that's going on, to get into the Europa League group stages is the ultimatum. That is what we'll hopefully remember in a couple of years to come. But there's certainly a lot of things to be worked on before Sunday. We've got lots of people getting in touch. Jonny, I'll fire a couple of questions to you. Callum's asking for your opinion in particular instead of mine, so that's 1-0 to you. What do you think Morelos needs to do to improve? I mean,
well, the thing is, we know he's going to improve. You know, he'll go up against Celtic and he'll be a completely different player, but that's part of the problem, I think, of why Alfredo Morelos hasn't got the big money move that he probably thinks he deserves. Because you need to turn it on every week. So watching scouts will say, well, if he can't do it against the St Mirrens and the Alashkerts of this world, then that tells you something. You know, he will be good against Celtic, I'm sure of that. I'm sure that he'll cause absolute havoc in the Celtic defence. And we all know that when Alfredo Morelos is on it, he's superb, really difficult to pin down.
Yeah.
He's got the quality to keep an entire back line occupied. He can run in behind, he can hold up, he can drop deep now. He's added the sort of Roberto Firmino element to his game. So he's got absolutely everything. But for me, in that game today, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people watching it who'll feel the same way, I felt Alfredo Morelos just didn't look quite decisive enough in front of goal. It was the style of his finishing. It wasn't, this is going in the back of the net. It just looked a little bit lackadaisical, which is not what you want to see.
Yeah. Especially that first one when he went through on goal. I don't really know. I always think he's a better instinctive finisher. I think most people think that, and you've seen that even with the goal in the reverse, the goal that wins the tie. Let's not forget, for all his complaints perhaps tonight, he has won the tie with that goal. But even with that goal, he takes his time. He finishes through the legs of the keeper, but he isn't as natural a finisher as Roof is, for instance. So. Yeah, but I certainly as well expect a better performance from him on Sunday, and lots of people getting in touch to say in the context it's job done. But I think that justifiably, a lot of supporters will have frustrations. And I need to ask you about the big moment as well, Jonny. I personally really hope that Stephen Jarrett was watching on BBC to see. It was quite incredible, wasn't it? If you were watching on BBC, the interjection on 77 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it on my Twitter because I did. I sort of filmed it. The one thing I would say is I was actually a bit concerned because when the BBC do that, it's normally something huge. A break in programming for big news.
Okay.
You know, like a royal family death or something like that. Or some terrible news. So I did think for a second, oh dear, what is this? But then when you saw the guy in his t-shirt, sort of staring down the camera, looking a bit quizzical, it just sort of became comic. And then when the camera panned out and the sort of woman came in and joined them, as if she was wanting to be on the screen, it looked like they were maybe, I don't know if they were like visiting the studio or something like that. And it was bonkers. It was a rare moment of levity in the game. But you know, that'll probably be what people remember it for, as opposed to the actual football.
Yeah, absolutely. Derek, our colleague Derek tweeted me saying if he doesn't get a 9 in the match ratings, I'll be concerned. And he certainly was more entertaining than a lot of that second half. Finally, Jonny, Billy, a regular viewer, is getting in touch saying, why are we loading the box in 91 minutes? It was strange, wasn't it? Because I think it was 91 where you had Goulton and maybe Helander go up for a cross into the box. And I thought what was telling actually about that 50 minutes was you had Gary McAllister and Michael Beale on the edge of the technical area for a good 15 minutes coaching the team through the last 20 minutes of the game, which I think their body language probably demonstrated the feel of the squad that this wasn't how it was supposed to go. We should have dealt with that 10 minutes a little bit better, probably, shouldn't we have, Jonny?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was just a bit frantic, wasn't it? And the thing is, as well, is we're getting to the stage where it's worrying that we're going, yeah, Malmo, they were a lot better than we thought they were going to be. Yeah, Alashkert, they're a lot better than we thought they were going to be. You know, there starts to become a bit of a trend. Rangers just given the disparity in quality, that's what I was looking for. The disparity in quality between Rangers squad and Alashkert means that Rangers should have been, way ahead in this tie. And I know there was the sending off at half-time in the first game. I know there was the COVID issues for this game. But it's disappointing that once again, they haven't really produced the kind of performance I think that Rangers fans would expect.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is, look, it was really hot. I think they said was it 42 degrees?
36 degrees, I think.
36 degrees. So maybe over egging the pin with 42. That would be
42 would have been, I think.
Yeah, 36 is still pretty damn hot to be playing football. It must be said. So it would have been punishing out there. And listen, that's another thing. That'll be good to get them having gone through 90 minutes in terms of like getting their fitness up to speed and things like that for the new season. But I suppose that the negative side to it is that it's probably a tougher game than you would have hoped going into Sunday's clash, which is going to be absolutely huge now. You have to say, and we'll obviously touch on this tomorrow in a lot greater detail and a lot of the content we've got for tomorrow, but you'd have to say Rangers need to sort of go against form a little bit now on Sunday, because they're just, it hasn't been fluid and slick in the way that we know they can be. And that's a little concerning. We'll obviously find out more in terms of who's available over the coming days, I think, as well. And that'll give us a better indication, because it's important to remember, and we did highlight this before the game, and I've already said it here again, but just to reiterate, there's no pace really in that side. And that's a big thing to lose at elite level football. Not having pace and penetration on the flanks. I think that's something Rangers missed tonight. But we'll go into more detail on that tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally as well, I think these starts do happen. Man City romped the league last season and won 3 of their opening 7 or 8. So it's getting that line between trying to not lose ahead, but also, as you said, Jonny, asking the questions that this isn't what Rangers fans have become accustomed to, and has been disjointed. It hasn't been the 4 European qualifiers to get Rangers up to speed that have been the case in the last 4 seasons. But I think certainly supporters will expect a much brighter performance on a Sunday to make the international break a lot more positive than negative.
And listen, Joshua, that's the thing. If Rangers go out and win on Sunday, everything to this point of the season's forgotten.
Yeah.
Even Malmo to an extent. Because of the narrative around this season, because of the various issues, because of the suspensions, because of the difficulties up to this point, you can completely change it going into that international break. We'll see if it happens or not. You certainly hope that Rangers can put together a much better performance than they did tonight. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, we'll leave it there. We'll be back with the morning briefing to go through the game with a bit more of a retrospective look, having had some time to collect their thoughts. And then we'll be back, I think, in the afternoon as well to look ahead to the huge Old Firm game on Sunday. Remember, you can subscribe for just $2.99 a month, folks, to the Rangers Review to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. And we will speak to you tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your Thursday evening.